Have you ever looked closely at a drop of water? It seems calm, transparent, and ordinary. But hidden within it is an entire living universe, a place where millions of tiny creatures are breathing, moving, and surviving in silence. On a scale too small for the naked eye, they are repeating the very same laws of human life: cooperation, competition, love, hatred, and the struggle to exist. Tonight, let smart sleep carry you into that quiet world where every small ripple holds a lesson about life and the hidden beauty within silence. If you love whispered stories about the natural world and want to explore its wonders with me, hit subscribe and join this journey. Have you ever looked closely at a drop of water? It seems calm, transparent, nothing special, yet hidden within it is an entire living universe, a place where millions of tiny creatures are breathing, moving, surviving in silence, at a scale so small it's invisible to the eye. They repeat the same laws of human life: cooperation, competition, love, hatred, and the struggle to exist. Tonight, let smart sleep take you drifting into that quiet world where every small ripple carries a lesson about life and the beauty hidden within silence. If you love whispered stories about the natural world and wish to explore its wonders with me, press subscribe and join this journey. You can place a glass of water beside your bed, take a gentle breath, and look with me through that transparent layer, as if peering through a strange window. On the surface, all is still. The bedside lamp casts a soft streak of light, unmoving like a leaf pressed between two pages of a book. But if we allow ourselves to imagine, or more subtly, tilt our minds and shrink our view to the size of a speck of dust, we'll see that behind the stillness lies a city, not a city of concrete, brick, and glass, but one inhabited by beings so small that even if they wave to you, your adult eyes would never notice. There are gentle and mischievous bacteria, flagellates flicking their hair-thin tails, rotifers spinning in their own rhythm, and green algae quietly distilling light into sugar and oxygen. Everything moves like a soundless orchestra full of rhythm, emphasis, and pauses, whispering to us a secret. Stillness is only a shell. Imagine yourself standing at the city gate, where the boundary between transparency and invisibility blurs. The main road isn't made of asphalt, but of microscopic streams that glide smoothly. The buses are floating dust particles carrying nutrients from one corner to another. The intersections are where two tiny currents meet, swirl, and part like crowds splitting on a busy street at dusk. There, citizens never speak in words. Every movement is a map. Every touch is a message. Every molecule exchanged is a promise. And if you listen carefully, truly listen, you'll realize they're so busy that peace is merely an outsider's illusion. In this city, traffic is an art. The flagellate lifts its delicate tail and paddles steadily, like an oar slicing through thick syrup. At their scale, water doesn't flow as we see it. It clings like honey. Each flick propels them just a fraction forward. If you watch in slow motion, you'll see a gentle curve in the tail, then a push, and the tiny body advances a little. When a flagellate passes a rotifer, their encounter is fleeting, like two old friends brushing shoulders in a crowded street, exchanging a nod before moving on. Elsewhere, bacteria travel differently. Some glide along surfaces like skaters. Some surrender to the current, drifting until they latch onto a particle, a leaf fragment, a salt crystal, a bubble, and turn it into a private apartment. They anchor themselves with sticky molecules, building dense neighborhoods. You could call them collective housing or micro-apartments, both fit. Each new bacterial layer adds another floor, another hallway, another invisible pipe carrying nutrients in and out. Communication here is strange and refined. No slogans, no loudspeakers, no street signs. Yet every being knows exactly when to speed up, when to hide, when to meet and act together. Their language is one of taste, tiny signaling molecules, soft whispers to measure crowded or empty, enough or lacking. When the signal reaches a threshold, they understand. Our friends are all around, time to act. And like a neighborhood stringing up lanterns for a festival, the whole community shifts at once, secreting enzymes to unlock stubborn sugars, opening doors of nutrients for all to share, erecting membranes to block whirlpools, migrating together from one debris cluster to another in search of safer ground. The city is soundless but not lifeless. Its heartbeat travels through scent, touch, and microscopic flashes of motion like breath itself. Predation, you might think it's noisy. Not here. No roaring, no chases. A rotifer simply spins its cilia, creating a small current, and smaller creatures drift in, like leaves blown gently into an open porch. The stentor sets its transparent cup, glowing faintly, waiting for food to come by. Bacteria hunt cunningly, clustering around organic crumbs, releasing molecules to digest the meal into pieces, then sharing evenly. None rush, because haste could mean being swept away in a sudden eddy. In quieter layers, viruses not quite alive but cunning knock softly on a cell's door, borrowing its machinery to multiply, like a guest using a neighbor's kitchen and ending up hosting a feast. Everything unfolds weightlessly, no noise, only outcomes. A body swelling, bursting, a tiny mouth fed and turning away, a bare surface slowly covered by new homes. Reproduction, picture a morning mist. In this droplet city, dawn isn't measured by hours but by light. A faint ray slipping through your curtains may be signal enough for algae to start their factories. They harvest sunlight, fuse invisible carbon in water, and spin sugar food for the whole neighborhood. Bacteria and small protozoa thrive, grow, and divide. Reproduction here needs no courtship, just enough energy, and the body copies itself, like making spare keys. One becomes two, two become four. The population grows quietly like fine rain. Some exchange snippets of genes, sharing recipes for faster, stronger survival. The city renews itself every hour, every day, and unless you peer deeper, you'd never guess that an explosion of life just occurred beneath the calm surface. Do you hear the laws? No signs, no police, yet order exists. Governed by ancient rules, every creature obeys. Energy can't be created or destroyed, so every path of every molecule must be optimized. Surface area is gold. The more corners to absorb, the longer the life. Friction is the enemy, so bodies are sleek, cilia patterned just right. Danger always lurks, so there must be shelters and escape routes. In this small world, the slightest change makes all the difference. A tiny rise in temperature, a shift in viscosity, a slower swim and dinner is lost. Living here is an art of balance, fast enough not to be swept away, slow enough not to waste, close enough to share, distant enough to stay safe. If you linger long enough on the balcony of this droplet city, You'll see neighborhoods with their own architectures. The clear district, where flagellates and rotifers roam, is like a water park, full of whirls and bubbles. The murky district, where bacteria build layered homes, is like an old market, cramped but warm, scented with enzymes and sugars. Farther away lies the green light quarter of algae, bright by day, dim by night, yet always humming softly like a fridge that never turns off. Scattered throughout are transfer stations, grains of sand, bits of plant shell, a drop of oil where newcomers rest, breathe, and settle before moving on. Sometimes the city trembles when you accidentally touch the glass. A ripple passes west to east, and every resident pauses mid-beat, recalibrating. No panic, no chaos, only synchronized adjustment by those who understand their home. You might witness tiny migrations as communities leave an overturned particle, linking together like a silver thread. Festivals, when sudden nutrients flood in and everyone feasts. And even microstorms, when temperature drops, salt rises, or pH tilts, forcing the city to curl inward. Some inhabitants fall asleep in thick coats of spores, waiting for dawn. At such moments, I want to whisper to you lying there in the warm dark that our world, at every scale, runs on the same rules of balance, adaptation, and coexistence. We are so large we think we're apart, but a droplet teaches otherwise. Cooperation is function, not luxury. Without algae, others starve and suffocate. Without bacteria, organic fragments would pile up unbroken. Without builders of protective films, communities would be torn apart by current. Without predators, the city would choke with crowding. Every role matters, no matter how small. You may smile, close your eyes, and notice your breath. When you inhale, perhaps somewhere a droplet inhales light. When you exhale, a bacterium divides. A rotifer changes course. Though no one hears anyone, we're connected by a fine thread, the current of life, the sharing of energy, the wisdom of sufficiency. These tiny citizens don't need grand names or human comparisons. They simply do their work steady, patient, rhythmic, and that constancy becomes the quiet warmth in the glass beside your bed. Let me paint one last image like a slow-motion lullaby. A tiny, glass-like flagellate struggles to cross a thin current, slicing through its street. It pauses, flicks once, then again, not hurried, not defeated. After a few strokes, it reaches the richer bank, clings for rest, then swims on. This scene repeats everywhere, silent, unheralded, yet it keeps the city moving forward. When your own day feels long and heavy, remember that. Flick, brief, firm, patient, and it will be enough. And now, the wide shot before we close our eyes. The droplet, a glass sphere filled with transparent boulevards, tiny alleys, sticky apartment blocks, and glowing green plazas of algae. Moons and suns of bubbles float above. Sediment below houses, miners dismantling organic scraps into bite-sized pieces. Amid it all, millions of nameless citizens move, eat, breathe, reproduce, yield, and compete all in a deep, steady rhythm. True stillness, it turns out, isn't the absence of motion, but the harmony of everything knowing its place. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, keep this image. Stillness is a beautiful shell, and beneath it, movement hums in perfect time. Within a single drop of water, the world is complete with traffic, communication, predation, reproduction, laws, randomness, and order. We who think we need noise to feel alive might learn from the droplet's silence to move slower, see deeper, and live together more gently. Tomorrow, when you pour a glass of water and sip slowly, remember to send a silent greeting to that tiny city. For now, close your eyes, loosen your shoulders, and let your breath join the rhythm of the invisible orchestra playing beneath the calm surface. Sleep well as we close the image of this microscopic city, where every small motion beats like a steady heart. Let's draw even closer, as though listening from within, sensing the unseen signals rippling through the water. If before we saw a world alive within stillness, now we will hear it speak in a language without words, a conversation of scent, light, and rhythm, a tongue older than humanity, so subtle that only a quiet heart can understand. No sound rises within a droplet, yet every creature there knows when to act, when to stop. They communicate without mouths or tone, only through tiny molecules, invisible letters drifting through the water, carrying messages understood by all though taught by none. It's called quorum sensing, the sensing of the crowd. It sounds technical, but in truth, it's how microbes know they are not alone. Like entering a dark room and recognizing another by the sound of breathing. In the microscopic world, these signaling molecules are breath, our voice, our light in the dark. Each species has its own scent, a chemical code secreted quietly, accumulating over time, at first faint, unnoticed, but as it thickens, as the scent grows strong enough for everyone to feel, the whole community awakens. Imagine a neighborhood in the droplet. At first, a few sparse residents, working alone, feeding, breathing, dividing peace, like a morning without traffic. Then, tiny messages begin to spread, touch, and merge. One detects a new smell, a whisper of invitation. Another senses it too. Gradually, the scent becomes familiar, a glue binding them, until one moment, as if every window opens at once, they all understand. We are many now, and instantly, they change their way of life. No leaders, no orders, just one rising signal, and hundreds, thousands, act in unison. Bacteria secrete enzymes to digest larger food. Algae adjust photosynthesis to save energy. Some form biofilms, protective layers shielding all from currents or predators. This is how they turn silence into strength. An orchestra with no conductor, each note knowing when to rise. Listen closer, and you'll feel their dialogue as heartbeats in water. One beat says, "I am here." Another, "We are enough." A longer one, "We agree." Molecular waves drift slowly, collide, merge, and fade like the sea's breath. Not loud, not rushed, only patient rhythm, the rhythm of life at its smallest scale. To us, peering through microscopes, they are silent actors on an unspoken stage. Yet if instead of looking, we listen with feeling, we sense the wonder in their harmony. Each being knows its limits, and through that knowing, they cooperate flawlessly. No one pushes ahead, commands, or is left behind. They simply understand like old souls who need no words. When microbes speak with signals, they use a language older than humankind. For over 3 billion years, those conversations have echoed in oceans, in soil, in living bodies, even within us. Bacteria dwell in our gut, on our skin, in our lungs, in the cleanest corners we know, and every moment they are signaling, listening, coordinating to keep us balanced. Our bodies too are great droplets, filled with billions of little talkers sustaining our lives. Realizing this, we feel kinship. We also communicate in our own ways. A glance, a breath, a touch, all are signals. Our bodies release hormones to tell cells, rest now, or be alert, or all is well. On another level, we are no different from the beings in the droplet. Only our words are more complex, but our essence the same, seeking one another in stillness. Sometimes this harmony is heartbreakingly beautiful. In a droplet, when bacterial numbers reach the conversation threshold, they activate defense. A thick biofilm forms a shared roof. Inside, they share food, grow, endure, dryness, light, heat. If one is hurt, others send enzymes to heal. None are allowed to collapse alone. They live as an ancient community, nameless, voiceless, yet loving and protective. Perhaps that's the lesson humanity forgets in its noise. We speak much, understand little. We connect often, touch rarely. But in the droplet, where molecules whisper, they truly listen. Not to win, but to understand. Each signal costs energy, yet they send it anyway, because shared understanding is stronger than solitude. Sit quietly in your room, lights off, eyes closed. Feel the hazy space around you. Imagine it as a droplet. In its darkness, millions converse, no words, no sound, only soft ripples spreading like scent in air. Each chemical signal a gentle voice. Each reaction a nod of agreement. No debates, no proofs, only existence, and the will for life to go on. I often think the stillness in a droplet isn't silence's absence, but understanding's presence, comprehension beyond logic, sensed, not measured. Like hearing your own heartbeat or the breath of someone beside you, small things yet without them, the world would be mute. When bacteria prepare to attack, they wait, sending signals for allies until enough gather to act. It sounds fierce, but it's perfect cooperation. No commands, no dissent, no loneliness. They hold their breath, waiting for the right moment, like warriors awaiting a drumbeat. Then they move together. To the naked eye, nothing changes, but at their scale, a storm breaks, a chemical revolution transforming their world. Their unity makes us ponder. How often do we humans listen before we speak? Wait before we act? How often do we sense the scent of belonging, that quiet energy telling us we are not alone? Microbes may teach us more than we know, that true power lies not in loudness, but in shared awareness. At night, I imagine those signals as glowing threads weaving through darkness, each bright point a being. When close enough, they shine brighter, like fireflies in summer forests. No one instructs them. They simply find one another to glow, then rest, then glow again. A perfect cycle of connection and release. Seen this way, the droplet becomes nature's gentlest lullaby, rhythm of signal, waiting, understanding, response. Each chemical word, a low note, and between them, we hear ourselves. We too have invisible signals, the warmth of entering a welcoming room, or the quiet between two who understand without speech. If you're hearing this now in the dark, relax. Imagine yourself a droplet floating in space. Inside you, millions whisper wordless tales. Some call out, some wait, some just observe. You'll realize that this stillness isn't empty. It's full of life, like the human soul. Sometimes silence isn't loneliness, but the universe speaking its secret tongue. Since the dawn of time, when Earth was a primordial ocean, the first beings spoke this way. No words, no forms, only molecules finding each other in darkness. From that, life expanded and evolved. Billions of years later, in the droplet you hold, that language remains. It never vanished. It still sings. We've only forgotten how to listen. Maybe tonight we can listen again. As your breath slows, your heart steadies, your body softens. You might feel the pulse of connection. Tiny, but true. Life at every scale seeks togetherness, whether by sound, light, or scent. The message is the same. I am here. You are not alone. Come, and when we understand that, we'll see why a quiet droplet can hold an entire world. Because within that stillness, every being is conversing in nature's wordless language, a melody heard only by a gentle heart, by a soul that has let go of noise. So before you close your eyes, remember somewhere, in the glass on your table, in the dew outside your window, or within your own cells, millions of conversations are happening. No arguments, no haste, no rivalry, only signals spreading, light as breath, steady as love. The silence in the droplet is the ancient voice of life itself, lulling you to sleep each night in the only way the universe knows. As those silent conversations fade like scent dissolving in water, tilt your glass a little. The lamplight slides across the surface, scattering faint specks. Earlier, we listened to the language of the many, the whispering rhythm of community. Now, let's step deeper. At the scale of microorganisms, gravity suddenly becomes so polite that it steps back to the edge of the frame. The names that come first are adhesion, surface forces, and tension at the boundary between liquid and solid, between water and oil. To us, a speck of dust is negligible, but to micrometer-sized residents, it's the central square. A fragment of leaf that to our eyes is only a brown streak becomes, within a drop of water, an entire hillside with grooves, shortcuts, balconies, and tiled roofs. And a droplet of oil, fragile like a bent broken mirror, is a giant floating dome where currents change direction, nutrients gather, and silent migrations find a place to pause. Let's call these structures urban infrastructure for now. There are no engineers, no blueprints, yet nature has designed them with great care. A spherical dust grain creates gentle slopes for residents to slide and cling to. A flattened dust grain is like a bridge, allowing flow beneath, and a stable hold above. Salt crystals with sharp edges form terraced neighborhoods, each step a different energy edge. Spots with heavy shade and little oxygen, places where slanting light warms the surface, places where flow converges and food abounds. Bacteria don't see with eyes like we do, but they read structure with chemical fingertips, sticky molecules, surface spikes, ion exchange gates, and every touch becomes a decision. Cling or leave, settle or just visit. Here, adhesion matters more than any grand theory. An extracellular polymer layer, the transparent glue secreted by bacteria, can turn a dust particle into an apartment block. That glue traps water, cages nutrients, and becomes a windbreak wall against microcurrents. Whenever a community attaches to a surface, sticky sugar chains knit together like strands of a wool scarf, forming a soft canopy. Under that canopy, temperature swings less wildly, salinity shocks less, pH wobbles less. Everything becomes moderate, and moderate is the condition that lets tiny lives unfold. A ragged leaf fragment becomes a grand theater of decomposition. Cellulose fibers look like planks, But under a microscope, they're paved roads with deep grooves. Bacteria settle and secrete enzymes like carpenters with saws and chisels. Shaving off one grain at a time, ciliates pass by, sweeping their cilia like cleaners gathering crumbs into their mouths. Algae cling to the edges, distilling light into sugars, like a refreshment stand at the corner. It all proceeds slowly, with rhythm and emphasis. Outsiders think it's quiet. Insiders know it's busy. Coils of enzymes waft out like the smell of fresh bread, tempting the whole block. But don't worry, no pushing. At this scale, jostling only makes you slip off the surface. So residents learn to stand firm with sticky hooks, pseudopods, and short, measured flagellar strokes. The first time they latch on, they hold their breath. The second time, they already know how to drop their center of gravity, like you standing on a slick floor, careful yet supple. An oil droplet tells a different story. Water and oil dislike each other, so their interface is taut like a drumhead. There, surface tension is high, forcing every current to tilt slightly. Bacteria take advantage. The oil surface accumulates hydrophobic molecules, dishes, hard to find elsewhere. Some bacteria carry special toolkits, surface proteins like gloved hands that pat oil without slipping, oil-eating enzymes like flat griddles, warming and chopping long chains into mouth-sized pieces. Flagellates drop by to sip the morsels, fueling their cycles. At the oil's edge, like a harbor glowing warm and gold, some arrive, some stay. Seasons rise and fall. When the oil droplet breaks, smaller droplets become offshore archipelagos, adding a chain of new mooring points for micro sailors. What would the city be without things to cling to? Imagine a water desert, smooth, flat, nowhere to hold. There, a light ripple is a storm. A weak current becomes a gale. Residents drift like pollen, twitching flagella and losing their way. So every chance dust grain that falls in is a blessing. Nature understands this and scatters constructions everywhere. Pollen from the wind, diatom shells from the sea, fungal threads from soil, fibers from a shirt drying on the line. They fall into the water, and instantly the city appears. No groundbreaking ceremony, no ribbon cutting. Only the handiwork of residents who know how to seize the moment. Let's walk along a highway inside the droplet, a thin stream running from the rim of the glass to the bottom. At each bend, velocity shifts, spawning zones of rolling diffusion. Exactly there, nutrients collect, like parked trucks. Quick bacteria latch on and pitch polysaccharide tents. Tents line up into rows, then blocks. In the middle stands a dust grain playing the roundabout, guiding the flow in a gentle loop, saving energy while dragging nutrients across the storefronts. The neighborhood prospers. Elsewhere imitates a tiered city cascading down several millimeters. To the naked eye, you see only a faint cloudy streak, like dirt. In truth, it's the traffic map of a quiet civilization. In each building, micro-planning is practical. The outer layer is protection. Thick polymers with tiny pores, so the flow can breathe, like a diver's mask. The middle layer is production. Bacteria break things down. Piping circulates meals in molecular form. The core is the nursery. Young cells rest in the safest spot, learn the community's sense of signals, and wait to mature before moving to the storefront. And like every city, there's a central market. Passers-by, vorticella, rotifers, other ciliates stop to feed. inadvertently shaving the surface so new layers can latch on. Symbiosis unfolds without promises or contracts, yet as durable as stone. You might ask, why does adhesion dominate so much? Because at the micrometer scale, the Reynolds number, the yardstick comparing inertia to friction, is so small that inertia is practically powerless. There's no shooting forward and coasting. Every movement is pay as you go. One flick, one step. Stop flicking, stop at once. Clinging to surfaces both saves energy and creates advantage. A surface is a home, with a roof, a setback from the wind, a balcony for sun, and atop the skyscrapers of the droplet, grains of sand, fibers, oil droplets. Residents find the right window for their needs. Light lovers choose the lamp-facing roof. Shade seekers take the lee side. Quiet lovers tuck into deep grooves. Wherever there's a fresh surface, there's a frontier. Watch a micro sliver of wood drift into the glass. First come the directors, pioneer bacteria, good at sticking, good at enduring. They spread a thin glue and call friends by scent. Next arrive the professional degraders, carrying enzyme sets to dismantle cellulose, hemicellulose, lignin. After them come service providers, species that eat the leftovers. The degraders leave, paying back with vitamins and organic acids for the neighbors. Finally, the builders finish the protective film, sealing gaps. The block takes shape. If the current changes, part of the community peels off like moss, floats away, and wherever it lands, a new neighborhood sprouts. Micro-migration, light as ash. Oil droplets hold another secret. The oil-water boundary is nature's chemistry class. There, molecules are forced to pick a side, water-loving or oil-loving. Amphiphiles water-friendly at one end, oil-friendly at the other. Perch at the boundary. Like sentries, faces turn to two worlds. Handy bacteria array these guards into a slide, less slippery and ferrying nutrients from oil into water. Thus, an oil droplet is eroded with culture. It doesn't shatter chaotically, but shrinks step by step, like a ball deflating slowly, so residents have time to relocate. And dust? Dust is history. It carries minerals, metals, and memories of the road it traveled. Wherever it arrives, it changes the chemistry there. An iron-rich particle can make algae bloom deep green. A salty particle can invite salt-tolerant species. A dust speck laced with organics is like a pastry placed in the square. So the microcity has not only architecture, but cultural districts. Fresh water, slightly brackish, oil-scented, leaf mold. Each quarter attracts a different community, sketching a settlement map that shifts after every night. Every time you move the glass, every breeze through the window. Let's slow down. Do you hear it? The almost motionless water in your glass. Behind the quiet, thousands of sticky hands are laying bricks. When you rotate the glass, the buildings tilt, and the flow drapes over them like a scarf. Residents know to bow, grip tight, and wait for the eddy to pass. Then they get back to work. No one complains, no one boasts. They trust what's right against the skin, the surface under their fingertips, the grooves that shelter and neighbors who share. That's enough to keep a city standing in a world where wind to us is just wind, but to them an earthquake. In your dark room at this moment, perhaps there's also an oil droplet in your mind, a tense surface where thoughts drift in and change course. When we let thoughts gather at the calm edge, We can latch onto a still point and breathe evenly from there. Micro-residents seem to understand this better than we do. Surface creates rhythm. Rhythm creates habit. Habit creates endurance. At any age, that lesson is lovely. Find a good surface to cling to, a gentle routine, a wholesome habit, a slow minute before sleep, and let life unfurl from there. There's another delicate detail in droplet urbanism, the micro-balconies. On a sand-grained slope, tiny pores act as flow-facing balconies, spots where residents position themselves just so, to catch nutrient streams thin as smoke. Vorticella often hangs its house there, the transparent goblet open toward the flow, like a riverside restaurant. Passers-by minute algal specks, organic crumbs drift straight into the kitchen. Dinner serves itself. On the upper floor, algae cling to the rim, micro-leaves folding and unfolding with light, like shutters. On the lower floor, repairman bacteria stand ready, patching leaks as they come, the maintenance crew of a tower. When the surface wears, they add a layer. When the flow strengthens, they reinforce with longer polymer strands. No one says sustainable construction, yet everything endures. If you're curious about the sound of this architecture, sound as in rhythm and space, imagine a very slow lullaby. The drum beats are adhesive touches. The offbeats are enzymes released in pulses. The rests are the moments when residents hold their breath for the current to pass. The piece has no climax, seeks no impression. It only wants you to sleep. Because when you sleep, this city works best. Lights change less, drafts ease. The glass doesn't move. Night is the golden hour of building. Back to the leaf fragment, where a worksite hums. Cellulases slice like pencil sharpening knives, splitting big fibers into smaller ones, then smaller still. Each cut frees sugars, a faint syrupy scent that draws crumb collectors. When a patch hollows enough, it grows lighter and rises slowly on convection, carrying its Klingons. At the rim of the glass, the sea breeze licks gently. Temperature dips, the leaf patch contracts and sheds. Residents rain down, scattering, and below, a sand grain receives them like a landlord with keys. The cycle is seasonal. Up, down, full, empty. The city never stands still, but rhythm makes it feel as though it does. Sea, trash, to us, becomes the skeleton of a civilization. Step back and remember, humanity did the same. Stones for houses, earth for banks, wood for bridges. Microbes, on a much smaller scale, gather dust, leaf, oil. They aren't picky. They only need a surface where a hook can catch. From the smallest foothold, they build admirable systems, moderating temperature, storing water, cycling nutrients, defending against enemies, raising the next generation. That is architecture in the best sense, turning what exists into what's needed at low cost and high durability. Perhaps you're stifling a yawn. Good. That means the music has reached your muscles. Before your eyes close, let me place a gentle image in your mind. A lone dust mote, like a dim star in a watery sky. From four sides, little dots approach, no noise, no hurry. They touch, cling, pause, then touch again. Layer knits upon layer, like a thin blanket laid over someone sleeping. Time stretches like taffy, and when you wake, the dim star has become a cluster, glowing softly inside the glass. Tomorrow, if you like, take the glass to the window and tilt it slightly. You won't see any buildings, but you will see light being redrawn, rolling streaks, hazy bands, a few cloudy specks, like raindrops on glass. That is the urban map imprinted into optics. You don't need to make out each resident. Just know, there, what we thought discard is keeping time for a city, nourishing voiceless conversations, and sheltering the tiny sleeps of the next generation. When we learn to sleep well, like a droplet clinging to a few good surfaces, a quiet page, an even breath, a low lamp, our lives become more supple against the wind. The micro-residents have shown the way. Don't despise the little hook. Don't overlook the dust grain. Don't flick away the oil droplet. From those, houses rise. From those, stillness gains a roof. And from those, life, including your sleep, finds something to lean on. Now then, let the glass stand on its own. Outside, if a new leaf scrap falls, another tower will quietly rise. In this room, if a stray thought appears, let it settle at the calm edge like an oil droplet on water. Don't stir. Everything will find its own shore and arrange itself. You only need to breathe, slowly, evenly, and sleep. As we step away from the micro-city with its buildings raised from dust and oil, the scene widens. From those quiet corners governed by adhesion, we move into a livelier world where energy doesn't sit still, where life follows one another in an endless circle. In water that seems flat, there exists a tiny, closed, exquisitely precise food chain that makes the big ecosystems outside look like rough drafts. Lean back a little, close your eyes, imagine yourself shrinking, smaller and smaller, until a drop of water spreads like an ocean, and before you float innumerable tiny beings, transparent, soft, drifting like motes of light. There, every creature has a role, every movement a meaning. Together they weave the perfect ecological music that nature has whispered for billions of years. First come the algae, the farmers of the micro-world. Algae are dreamers who live on light. When morning tilts into the droplet, they open their tiny leaves and receive each golden ray. In stillness, they turn the most invisible thing, sunlight, into sugars, into oxygen, into life. If we magnified the scene, you'd see a whole green field blooming, glistening like fresh grass at dawn. Each algal cell is a tiny machine, tirelessly transforming energy, producing the basic food for the entire city in the droplet. No noise, no quarrels. They work like farmers, tending fields, day after day, season after season. If we could hear them, perhaps it would sound like warm, even breathing, like someone exhaling softly by your ear as you're about to fall asleep. But where there is light, there are always those who wait in shade. As algae store energy, heterotrophic bacteria, the distributors, start their work. They eat what algae leave behind, or algae that have died, releasing energy back into the circle of life. A cell that dies doesn't vanish. It becomes a meal, becomes building material, becomes part of someone else. Everything is reused, no waste, no trash. In that world, death is merely continuity, like when you switch off the lamp, but light lingers on your eyelids. Next are the predators, flagellates, ciliates, rotifers, slightly larger beings with mouths, ciliary paddles, and instinct. They are wanderers, solitary hunters, nomads traveling watery roads in search of prey. Ciliates wield hundreds of tiny hairs, sweeping water into gentle vortices. Those swirls carry small algae and sluggish bacteria into their mouths like wind drifting dust into your hand. Flagellates are subtler. They use their flagellum like a fishing rod, pushing themselves toward a target, then sipping it unhurried, without chaos. Each hunt is a dance, each gulp a note. All of it takes place in silence. When we think predation, we imagine roars, blood, chases. Here, there is none of that. Only the steady rhythm of flagella and cilia, of energy changing hands in quiet. Slow the scene down, and you'll see every small creature obey the choreography of cycles. Algae make sugars, bacteria eat sugars, ciliates eat bacteria. Then, the ciliates die and become a feast for other bacteria. Layer by layer, loop by loop, no beginning, no end. The micro-universe doesn't need a law of conservation of energy because it is a living demonstration of it. Every particle of matter is passed along, a gift that never runs out, only changes form. In darker corners, where light never reaches, lies the realm of the cleanup crew, anaerobic bacteria. They work while the rest rest. They reclaim leftovers, chop them down, restructure them into simpler nutrients, and send them back up to the lit tiers. A closed cycle from light to dark, from life to death, from algae to ciliates, from bacteria to other bacteria. Everything links like taut strings that do not snap. A touch, anywhere, a change in light, temperature, or salinity sets the whole chain trembling. That tiny droplet is, in truth, a miniature planet. It has a sun, light shining through. An ocean, the aqueous solution. Producers, consumers, decomposes. It has day and night, birth and decay, order. If someone says life is complicated, invite them to look at a droplet. All the secrets of ecology are in there if we're quiet enough to see. Have you ever considered this? While we fret over economics and politics, over who wins and who loses, in a bead of water on a leaf outside the window, hundreds of thousands of beings labor without pause, not for fame, not for goals, but for each other's life. When algae stop photosynthesizing, bacteria sense the oxygen shift and adjust at once. When ciliates overfeed, algae slow their growth to rebalance. No one instructs anyone, yet the whole community functions like a single body. It all runs on signals, sensing, a shared rhythm like heart and breath in a human being. Stillness in a droplet isn't the absence of fluctuation, but the fact that every fluctuation has order. Imagine an orchestra without a conductor. Each player knows their part, knows when to enter and when to rest. No cues needed, no one seeking the spotlight. And yet the music is full, beautiful, and calms the listener. The tiny food web is the same. There are no villains, no heroes. Algae don't blame ciliates for eating them. Ciliates don't resent bacteria for gnawing their remains. Each creature simply does the work assigned by nature. That acceptance is what makes the system strangely perfect. When you look into a droplet and think it's still, you are actually seeing millions of lives passing by. Some are born, some disappear, some eat, some are eaten, yet all is as peaceful as a summer night, crickets afar, wind brushing leaves, a lake surface flat and calm. That is the beauty of balance, the thing we humans always seek and rarely hold. But balance is fragile. A small change, a little extra light, an oily dust fleck, a drop of human chemical can break the chain. When algae grow too fast from excess nutrients, oxygen is depleted and everyone else suffocates. Peace to chaos is a hair's breadth. That tiny world teaches limits, that even kindness has a dose, that the gentlest things can turn dangerous if they exceed balance. If you listen to the voice of the water in your glass at night, you'll find each bubble is a breath. Algae inhale light and exhale oxygen. Bacteria inhale oxygen and exhale CO2. The whole droplet is lung, heart, bloodstream. That rhythm never stops. Even if you doze, scale that rhythm up billions of times, and you'll see this planet is the same. Earth is just a larger droplet where all life breathes together, shares energy, exists by one another. I think perhaps what keeps us awake isn't a lack of noise, but that we've forgotten nature's rhythm. We've strayed too far from the cycle, eating without sensing origin, consuming without thinking of renewal, competing while forgetting we're inside the great food web. The little droplet, humble as it is, keeps that wisdom. It leaves no one behind. No part of life is wasted. In its quiet running, there is a lesson in gratitude, in taking less, giving more, in how life nourishes itself with each breath. Now imagine a last ray skimming across, shining on a clear droplet on a leaf. Inside, you see tiny green, red, and yellow dots. Each dot is a living being, a small story. As the light reflects, the droplet gleams like a gem, as if the universe had curled into the palm of your hand. Algae are releasing oxygen, ciliates are hunting, bacteria are decomposing. That tiny food chain keeps turning, gentle and precise, like a clock wound by the hand of God. If you're still awake, slow your breathing. Each breath you take is an extension of that cycle. When you inhale, you borrow the oxygen that algae have made. When you exhale, the CO2 you produce will nourish another organism. Whether large or small, we are all playing in the same symphony. There is no I or they, only we, a part of the food chain, of breath, of life. And perhaps the most beautiful thing in the story of a droplet is that it teaches us to listen to the world again. No need to force understanding, just let yourself drift with that natural rhythm, like a listener sitting in the night, hearing a concert without players, only the sound of life resonating. So when you close your eyes tonight, imagine a droplet floating slowly in space. Inside it, millions of beings are still working, still loving, still dying, still living. And within that silence is you as well, breathing with them, resting with them, sleeping to the world's rhythm. As we step away from the tiny food cycle within the droplet, let's zoom in on another detail movement, because within that seeming stillness, the whole world is still in motion, only at a pace so slow we don't notice. If we could shrink down to their level, we would see a completely different scene. The light breezes we feel turn into storms, and the water that seems to glide becomes thick as syrup. Water, under a microscope, is no longer the water we know. At the micro scale, it is thick, sticky, heavy. For us, a sweep of the arm in a pool makes ripples that soon vanish. But for a bacterium, even a slight flick is like you trying to swim in thick honey, where every centimeter is a trial. The viscosity of water increases millions of times for them. Here, there is no concept of inertia, meaning when you stop flicking, you stop moving. In this world, movement doesn't rely on momentum, but on continuity. You must keep flicking, keep changing direction. Every tiny push, every twitch of a flagellum is life force. Stop for a second, and you stop. Linger too long, and you'll be drawn into an eddy, sucked into a current, or simply sink, a slow, silent, but certain fall. Imagine you are swimming in a pool of honey, Your arms and legs are no longer useful because each push drags the sticky liquid back against you. You cannot swing hard to gain momentum because here, momentum is a luxury that doesn't exist. You can only slither, twist, stretch, bit by bit. And that is exactly how the tiny beings in this droplet move: slow, rhythmic, precise, not wasting a single motion. Flagellates are masters of micro-movement. Their flagellum isn't for slapping the water, but for twisting. It spins like a propeller, not to push water backward, but to coil water around the body, creating a temporary slide that lets the whole self slip forward. At a small scale, you cannot slice water to advance. Water refuses to be sliced. It clings like jelly. So the only way to move is to make the water around you move with you. In this world, going straight is an art, because the water is never still. A mosquito flapping nearby can make the droplet you live in quake like an earthquake. A surface ripple on a pond to you is a tsunami to them. A brush of a paintbrush tip into a glass can topple a city they spent hours building. But no one panics. They're used to it. They know that even in chaos, there's a way through if they keep adjusting the rhythm of the flagellum. Ciliates are different. They don't have a flagellum, but hundreds of tiny hairs. Cilia arranged around the body. When they move, those hairs don't flail randomly, but in rhythm, row by row, like arms waving. Each hair gives a gentle push to the water behind, waits for the next row to take over, then the next, creating a chain of continuous motion. From afar, it looks like a dancer in a soft feathered skirt, gliding with the current. Not powerful, not hurried, just enough to move forward. If you listen with your mind, you'll hear that beat. Swish, swish, swish. The sound of patience, steady and soft. Mouth-bearing protozoa, on the other hand, swim by spinning around themselves, like someone choosing a detour instead of forcing a straight line. They create a small rolling current, a mini vortex, and that very vortex carries the body along. When they meet an obstacle, they don't crash into it, but slide around it, like a leaf meeting a rock and turning aside. No struggle, no force, only going with the flow. These movements make no noise, but they hold nature's philosophy. Subtle persistence outweighs brute strength, and adaptation is the art of survival. In water, no one wins by speed. Those who are more skillful and flexible go farther. Every motion is calculated to the millisecond, because each small error costs precious energy. Energy made from light, sugar, or from another's remains. If humans could learn one thing from that world, it would be the art of moving forward without creating chaos. Microorganisms move gently, yet always reach their goal. They don't charge, they glide. They don't slash water, they speak with water. Each flick is a request. Every current is a partner, not an obstacle. When night falls, I often think, perhaps we too should learn to swim that way through life. No need to fight everything, just understand the direction of the current, then choose how to blend into it. Life's flow, like water, is sometimes thick, sometimes thin, but it always has a rhythm, and if we are willing to listen, we'll find a way through it as smoothly as a flagellate in a droplet. At that scale, there's something else. Time seems to pass differently. A tremor in the air can make that whole world spin for minutes. A small bump, say. A dust speck touching down can create a swirl that lasts for hours. Every disturbance in the big world becomes a natural disaster in the small one. Strangely, no one complains. They live with it, receive it, make it part of life. A bacterium swept along might find a new surface where the light is better and food is richer. Every disturbance, seen with calm eyes, is an opportunity. A droplet, to us, is the emblem of stillness. But inside, it's a picture of continuous motion. Everything is drifting slowly, but never stopping. At the micro scale, quiet doesn't mean motionless. It is the balance of countless tiny motions, adjusted so perfectly we mistake it for nothing happening. Like your breath right now, so gentle it feels absent, yet it keeps you alive. You can try imagining this scene before sleep. A tiny flagellate is swimming past a neighborhood glittering with dust motes. Each flick of its tail spins the minute salt crystals around its body, refracting light into a faint rainbow in the water. In the distance, a rotifer is turning, rolling water toward its mouth, making a peaceful whirl. And between them, slender threads of current are curving, light as breath. There is no sound, but there is rhythm. No haste, but there is purpose. A world passes without a trace, yet every movement holds the meaning of life. In the room where you lie, there may be no waves, no streams, but tiny air flows still move around your body. Your breath is even, your heart taps softly. Your body is also a big droplet, where billions of cells are moving, swimming in your own fluids, obeying the same rules. You too are a small world, and within you, countless stillnesses are in motion. The micro world humbles us. It reminds us that power doesn't lie in speed, but in gentle continuity. It teaches that sometimes, to move forward, we must accept going slow, and to exist, we must learn to harmonize with our surroundings, rather than try to control them. I want you to hear the water in the glass again, or just imagine it. It's the softest sound in the world. Inside it, thousands of beings are swimming, striving, existing. Each flick is a prayer for life. Each current is a lullaby, written in motion, not sound. And tonight, as you drift into sleep, remember, stillness is never immobility. It is simply motion adjusted to perfection so perfectly we think nothing is happening. Like your heart still beating, still working without pause, but so gentle you barely notice. The world in the droplet and the world in you aren't so different. Both know how to live in quiet, while still moving lightly, deeply, astonishingly beautiful. When we step away from the realm of soft motions where flagellates paddle through honey, where water becomes slow roads, we may think we've reached peace. But that droplet, gentle as it is still a battlefield. There are no gunshots, no smoke, but there are silent struggles that have lasted billions of years. And if we shrink enough to listen, we'll realize that stillness is only the mask of a symphony of survival. Every droplet is a world, and within that world, life is a game of patience, cunning, and adaptation. At the micro scale, there is no guaranteed tomorrow. A slight change in temperature, an accidental bump, a stray chemical drop can wipe out an entire community. So those tiny beings have learned to survive through flexibility. First comes micro-hibernation, the art of waiting, when conditions are harsh, when food runs out, or when water evaporates. Many bacteria curl up, pull back all their energy, and build a thick shell around themselves. We call it a spore. A spore is a sealed home, sturdy as a fortress. Inside, life halts for a time, but doesn't die. It simply lies still, awaiting a chance. A drop of rain, a ray of light, a fresh breath of moisture. Then, when the environment softens, the spore opens and life rekindles, like a lamp relit from old embers. Some spores survive for hundreds of years in dry soil, buried by wind, baked by sun, and then suddenly bloom when they meet water. They don't need luck, only time. And in their world, time isn't measured in years, but in opportunities. They don't fear death, because they've learned how to pause. Like us people amid noisy lives, sometimes we need to hibernate in our minds, step back, wait for the storm to pass, and then go on. But they don't only wait. They also share survival secrets. At the genetic level, microorganisms can do what humans can only dream of: exchange genetic information laterally. One bacterium can pass to another, a DNA segment that helps it resist drugs, endure heat, or digest a new kind of food. No need for parents or the next generation, just contact, just a touch. A tiny molecular bridge called a pilus, and the information goes through, like handing someone a slip of paper with a code. Under a microscope, you'd see two tiny cells standing side by side, joined by a thread thin as a filament of light. In a few seconds, genetic material slides across, changes owners, and the two part, each carrying a piece of the other's memory. It's the oldest form of knowledge, symbiosis on Earth. No ownership, no envy, only sharing, because in that fragile world, the survival of one can save the community. We humans call it collective intelligence, but microorganisms have done it since before we could speak. At that scale, stillness isn't indifference, but tacit understanding. If I have something useful, I share it. If I know a path to live, I tell you. Because if you live, I have a chance to live too. Then, when stronger foes appear, viruses, microcarnivores, bacteria switch strategies. They change shape and form. Some lengthen their bodies to slip out of a predator's throat. Some secrete slime so enemies slide off. Some alter their cell surfaces to lock the door, keeping viruses out. Each day, they change a little. Each generation, they are different. And in that silence, billions of variants are tried, discarded, selected, kept. No applause for the winner, no tears for the loser, only evolution. Slow, steady, relentless. If you look closely at a droplet under a microscope, you'll see a scene that seems poetic. Tiny beings swirling, moving, chasing, merging. But in truth, it's an arms race. One devises armor, another invents enzymes to crack it. One learns to hide, another learns to sniff it out. The spiral never ends, and strangely, it still looks peaceful, because everything happens in order. No annihilation, only transformation. And that's life's first lesson. To exist doesn't mean to win. To exist is to know when to change. Bacteria survive not because they are the strongest, but because they know when to stop, when to wait, when to blend. They don't seek glory. They seek to continue. We, on the other hand, often exhaust ourselves trying to win a game where persistence would have been enough. In this quiet night, as you listen to wind outside the window, think of the tiny spores sleeping beneath the soil, awaiting the first rain. They lie there, neat, patient, unafraid of loneliness, because they know everything returns. Light, water, warmth all return, and when conditions suffice, life springs up, as if it had never left. Beside the hibernators are those who never stop learning. In that droplet, there's no school, but every event is a lesson. When one dies from sunlight, the others learn that a thicker membrane is better. When a virus spreads, surviving cells remember its structure and pass on the experience to the next generation. No one names mutation, no one writes books, but their history lies in DNA, an endless journal in which each line whispers, "Don't forget the time we almost lost everything." Evolution isn't loud. It's the quiet editing, nature's tiny daily strokes on life's map, and the droplet is creation's eternal laboratory, where every mistake is tested, every idea is tried, and only what truly harmonizes remains. Perhaps that's why the droplet, though it has flowed for billions of years, still looks clear. It has witnessed countless micro-wars, generations born and gone, and yet stays as tranquil as at the beginning, because water does not judge. It remembers. It lets everything unfold within, settle, and begin anew. You see, stillness is not weakness. It is nature's strongest strategy. Stillness allows observation, adjustment, rebirth. Those who know how to live slowly are those who never disappear. Bacteria have been on Earth for over 3 billion years, while many larger, noisier, more dazzling species have gone extinct. Why? Because bacteria know when to hide. In the droplet's darkness, a bacterium curls up, secreting a thick glue, ready to enter sleep. Around it, currents still flow, light still shifts, others still move, but it lies still. A day, 2 days, perhaps hundreds, until a very small signal, a change in temperature, a breath of oxygen, a morsel of sugar awakens it. It stretches, breaks the shell, opens its eyes, and the world begins again. That isn't a miracle. It's the art of timing, and it is also the art of sleep. Sleep isn't the end of action, but preparation for new action. Like spores resting in quiet to await the rainy season, we too need moments to pause, to recover, to wait, to go on with renewed strength. Tonight, let your mind do as the spore does. Draw in, curl up, safe. Outside there may be wind, waves, upheavals, but within you, life remains intact, only resting. Then one morning, when light slips through the curtain, you'll wake, and life will continue, as if nothing had ever knocked you down. The droplet, in its stillness, contains both war and peace. But if you look long enough, you'll see its wars hold no hatred. They are only the instinct to love life. Every being wants to continue, one way or another. And on that journey, patience, sharing, and change are the 3 spells that carry them through time. As you are about to fall asleep, think of this. Your body, like the droplet, holds billions of cells doing the same. Resting, repairing, sharing signals, reshaping to adapt to the new day. You are not alone. Within you, a tiny universe continues to live, to love, and to learn how to survive. When the previous part closes with images of spores sleeping peacefully, waiting for the moment to live again, we can imagine dawn slowly spreading across that world. Light tiptoes into the droplet, not loud, not sudden, just a slender hand lifting a thin veil of mist. The small world wakes, not to a rooster's call, not to glaring brightness, but to the changing hues of life. Light at the scale of a droplet is not illumination, but breath. When the first ray pierces the water, it doesn't travel straight but scatters, bends, refracts, breaking into shimmering ribbons like silk. Each ribbon is a wake-up signal. Algae, the farmers of the droplet open their invisible eyes. They begin the day by switching on the photosynthesis factory. But it isn't busyness, it's a morning rite. Under the microscope, each algal cell is like a pale green gem. When light strikes, its interior glitters, as if thousands of tiny mirrors were reflecting the sun. Chlorophyll molecules absorb light, kick off reaction chains, and turn energy into sugar, into oxygen. Everything moves slowly, rhythmically, evenly, like a person in meditation. You can imagine, if our world is an ocean, then each droplet is a little heart beating to the light. As algae inhale light, the droplet grows fresher. Oxygen rises like a faint fragrance wafting through early morning. Tiny bubbles appear and then disappear, not because of waves, but because of life. And as oxygen increases, bacteria inhale, flagellates and ciliates stir. The droplet, once mirror still, now feels like a city waking up. No horns, no footsteps, only chemical rhythm. A rhythm the ear can't hear, but the heart can sense. Here, day and night aren't measured by clocks, but by the circulation of energy. As light fades, the algal factory closes. Micro leaves fold, like eyelids lowering. But it isn't the end of activity, only a shift in the shift. When the sun leaves, the decomposer bacteria clock in. They work quietly, like night shift workers in a big city. They digest dead algae, break down debris, return CO2 and minerals to the water, preparing raw material for the next morning. No one competes, no one steals hours. The entire community follows a perfect biological schedule. A clock with no hands, no bells, only rhythm. If you examine the droplets' graphs in a lab, you'll see that rhythm show up like breathing. Morning pH rises slightly because algae pull in CO2. Evening pH falls because bacteria breathe out CO2. Noon oxygen peaks, then quietly declines. Night the water grows, heavier, warmer, calmer. No one orders anyone, yet all know when it's their turn. That is nature's wordless intelligence. A wisdom that needs no brain. That droplet, at a tiny scale, is a model of Earth. By day, light nourishes. By night, darkness restores. One side builds, the other recycles. Both keep a fragile balance, the very thing that lets life continue without exhaustion. If light lasts too long, algae will tire. Oxygen will rise too high, and other organisms will suffocate. If darkness lasts too long, bacteria lack feedstock, and the decomposition chain halts. The world exists only when light and darkness know how to share. Humans often fear the dark, fear silence, fear resting. But the droplet does not. It understands that night is an essential part of life. In darkness, there is time to heal, to clean up, to regenerate. Bacteria work while algae rest. Come morning, algae work while bacteria rest. No one tries to seize more of the light. No one fears more of the dark. Both coexist, like two halves of a single breath. I like to think there is an invisible heartbeat in the droplet. When light pours down, the droplet inhales. When night falls, it exhales. Everything drifts to that rhythm. Soft, even, light. If you listen closely, you may hear a distant sound, like wind inside your chest. Science calls that phenomenon the photosynthesis, respiration cycle. But in the language of night, we can call it the pulse of life. algae, bacteria, ciliates, all are notes in that symphony. No one falls out of time, no one stands out. All blend together, a 24-hour cycle which for them may be an entire lifetime. But the beauty of a short life is this: it needs no long plan, only the right rhythm. You can picture a droplet as evening descends. The light dims, the green inside softens like eyes about to close. Algae stop photosynthesizing, channel energy into reserve granules, like someone putting away food for tomorrow. Bacteria begin releasing enzymes, dissolving the bodies that have grown weary. Oxygen drops, CO2 rises. A gentle warmth spreads evenly. The droplet seems to be sinking into sleep. But in that sleep, it still dreams of light returning, of new cells growing in the dark. Just like you, when you sleep, your body does not rest. The heart still beats, the lungs still work, cells still repair. Sleep is merely the night face of life. Both you and the droplet are small ecosystems that know how to rest at the right time. As I tell this, you may feel your eyelids grow heavy. That is natural. Your biological rhythm is syncing with the droplets. Morning take in energy, night give it back. Nothing is rushed. Nothing needs to be forced. Within that droplet, there is internal weather. By day, oxygen is plentiful. Micro winds blow stronger. Currents eddy lightly. Water is cooler. By night, dissolved gases lessen. The water thickens, warms, sinks. The tiny residents sense that change the way we sense the seasons. For them, each day is a year. Each morning, spring. Each evening, autumn. And they live each moment fully, without regret, without worry, without dreaming of tomorrow. Perhaps that is what makes their world so beautiful. There is no concept of late, no anxiety of not enough. They work by day, rest by night, love when possible, exist when needed, and within that cycle, they create stability, the very thing all humanity longs for, without realizing it's always there in a single drop of water. If a droplet could speak, perhaps it would say, "Don't chase the sun forever. Learn to love the dark as well, because in darkness, we are healed." When you lie down, the light around you fading, your heart slowing, you are doing exactly what the droplet is doing, resting to sustain life. That is nature's oldest philosophy, so simple that modern humans have forgotten it. Light inside the droplet is a biological clock, but it doesn't count time in numbers, it counts balance. Each time algae open their eyes is a greeting to dawn. Each time bacteria take the night shift is a lullaby, and so day and night take turns telling the story, keeping that small world forever alive. Imagine this: if we pressed an ear to a giant droplet, we would hear a very slow inhale, exhale, long as far off surf. That is nature's breath, never wrong, never off, never ending. And if you sleep well tonight, it is because your body is hearing that rhythm again, after a day drowned out by noise. The small droplet teaches a great truth: live by the light and rest by the dark. Breathe in when life gleams bright, and breathe out when night descends, because in the end, stillness is not silence, but the steady breathing of the entire universe. Let yourself drift with that rhythm, slow, gentle, and deep, like a droplet dreaming in the heart of night, like your breath sinking to its rhythm, very softly, very long, and very beautiful. As the previous part closes with the droplet's steady breathing, where light and darkness take turns to keep life resilient, we can picture the night just slipping away. The sun rises again, And in that light, the droplet is now rich with energy, full of oxygen, full of life. But alongside that are countless fragments. Old algae corpses, dead cells, excess molecules, tiny organic bits no one uses anymore. Nature does not waste. It has never thrown anything away. And to keep the world from drowning in its past, it assigns the task to invisible janitors, microorganisms. If any trade is sacred in this small world, it is the trade of decomposition. It is not glamorous, carries no glory, but it is the foundation that lets life go on, because no ending is truly an ending until matter is returned to the cycle. These tiny beings, from bacteria to yeasts, from mouth-bearing protozoa to spores, are nature's most tireless workers. They labor in darkness, in mud, in the deepest corner of the droplet. There is no bright light of algae there, no flagellates dance, only the smell of rot and the whisper of rebirth. Every dead cell becomes a chemistry problem. Proteins are broken into amino acids. Fats dissolve into glycerol and short carbon chains. Every organic scrap is taken apart. Slowly, patiently. No one hurries them. No one records their merit. Everything is done neat and meticulous, like a mother's hands tidying the kitchen after a family meal. And in doing so, bacteria regenerate energy for themselves. Each time they break down a molecule, a little energy is released enough to live, to divide, or to call in teammates. A decomposer community never works alone. When the scent of organics spreads a kind of fragrant signal, other species arrive, bringing better suited enzymes to continue the job. Thus, what has died becomes a feast for hundreds of other beings, and in silence, matter returns to simpler forms, ready to step into a new round of life. If you look at a dirty droplet, don't be quick to call it ugly. That is where recycling is happening. The brownish haze is not filth. It is the color of transformation. The tiny bubbles rising are not pollution. They are the breath of cleansing. Just as forests clean themselves after rain, or oceans filter turbid rivers, a droplet too has its self-healing. We often speak of the body's immune system cells that defend, fight disease, purify blood. Few realize Earth has its own immune system, and those tiny microbes are its cells. They clean rivers, filter the air, rebuild soil, balance the seas. From a raindrop falling on a roof to the deep ocean, they are everywhere, working without pause, without complaint, without rest. When rain falls, the droplet carries dust, smoke, and stray molecules. Once it meets the ground, soil bacteria immediately receive the gift. They process smoke into minerals, turn refuse into nutrients, dirty water into clean. No substance is left out, only passed from hand to hand, from form to form. Thus, Earth heals itself every day by being smaller than a pinhead. If you place a drop of river water under a microscope, you'll see a world full of workers, protein-degrading bacteria like carpenters, separating piece by piece, ciliates like street sweepers, vacuuming suspended crumbs, tiny yeasts like cooks, finishing half-done ingredients, and deeper still are anaerobic bacteria, divers, toiling where there is no oxygen, turning nitrate, sulfate, and carbon into new energy. Together they run a biological recycling plant, no supervision, no electricity, no fame. And the miracle is, that plant has not stopped for a single day in billions of years. If the human world stopped producing trash for one day, people would call it a miracle. In nature, that miracle happens every second, because tiny organisms are quietly tidying every trace of life. Your body is like that droplet. In you, gut bacteria break down food, recycle wastes, and help absorb energy. On your skin, friendly bacteria guard you from fungi and other germs. In your mouth, your lungs, your intestines, they work like a secret maintenance crew. You and they live together, coexist, and help keep balance. You don't just live with them, you live thanks to them. So when we speak of stillness in a droplet, we're truly speaking of a mechanism more enduring than any noise. Nature's recycling engine powered by patience, operated by balance, sustained by unspoken wisdom. Imagine, each time you pour hand wash water down the drain, that stream passes through millions of bacteria. They read each molecule as we read a letter. They know what to keep, what to break, what to send back into the cycle. When you throw something away, nature does not discard it. It reassigns it. There is no trash, only things not yet rightly understood. Bacteria know this. They don't call a corpse filth, but feedstock. They don't consider feces impure, but a treasure of nutrients. They do not fear rot, because rot is the first stage of rebirth. I often think that if we could see the world through bacteria's eyes, perhaps we would love life more. We would see death not as a period, but a comma in a long sentence. We would see value and reconnection in everything. We would waste less, care more, fear fading less. A droplet teaches us. Clean is not the absence of refuse, but the ability to recycle it. So too with the human soul, it cannot avoid being hurt, but it can heal itself by understanding and transforming those wounds. Microbes do that with matter. We can do that with feeling, and both require two things: time and stillness. In the droplet's darkness, when everything pauses, no light, no sound, you can imagine each little cell still at work, breaking, reassembling, breathing light, breathing deep. That is the sound of perseverance, not loud but endless. I like to think that when we sleep, the world is doing the same. Cells in your body repair what your day has worn. Earth cleans its air with rain. Rivers cleanse themselves with algae and bacteria. Seas purify through bioluminescent microbes. All quietly hygienize themselves in the planet's sleep. You, I, and the droplet all are part of that cycle, and the stillness we hear when night falls may well be the sound of the universe's recycling plant at work. No clanking metal, no engines, only biological rhythm. When we understand this, we will no longer fear repetition. We'll know that every ending, even decay, leads to a new beginning. Every rubbish in life, if rightly understood, is fertilizer for a better season. A droplet does this every day, and if one droplet can help keep the world cleaner, then each breath you exhale can lighten a little of your mind's burdens. So tonight, breathe deep. Imagine billions of tiny beings inside you, tidying, regenerating, mending. Thank this stillness, for it is not empty, but full of gentle transformation. As you sleep, the world keeps being wiped down. Outside, the droplet continues to filter. Inside, the body continues to heal. Both run quietly, steadily, perfectly. And tomorrow morning, when you open your eyes, the water will be clearer and your mind lighter, because both have been rinsed overnight by stillness, by time, by life's power of rebirth. As the previous part ends, we see the droplet clear again after a night of renewal. The microorganisms have finished their work, cleaning, refreshing, resetting. That small world, seemingly calm, now begins another cycle. But if we look deeper, we find something more important. unfolding new life being born from death itself. In the human world, death makes us stop, ache, and fear. But in the droplet, no one fears death. There, death wears no black. It shimmers silver, light as a breath dissolving into air. When a cell dies, it is not forgotten. It dissolves, breaks into hundreds of fragments, and each fragment becomes the ground for another form of life. An algal corpse is broken by bacteria into sugars. A dead ciliate feeds a rotifer. Even the last molecules, once fully dissolved into the water, are not lost. They merge with the flow, meet new cells, and are taken up again. In that world, no one truly disappears. They only change roles. If we could hear the droplets' language, perhaps we'd hear them say to one another, "Do not grieve when I dissolve. I will return as wind, as rain, or as your very descendants." Nature does not believe in absolute death. It believes in transformation. A carbon atom may once have been inside a bacterium, then a leaf, then a human, and finally, the sea again. A drop of water you drink today may have coursed through a dinosaur's veins millions of years ago. All of us humans, algae, fish, bacteria, are using the same matter, only changing forms. Seen this way, everything in the universe has reincarnation, and the droplet is the smallest, yet most perfect example of that law. Imagine a tiny algal cell. It photosynthesizes, makes oxygen, feeds others. Then it weakens, its membrane tears. Water rushes in, the structure collapses. But in that instant, the moment we humans would call death, the world around it blooms. Nearby bacteria sense the new stream of nutrients. They rush in, not to devour, but to receive the final gift of life. They absorb energy, divide, split, spread through the droplet. From one death, hundreds of lives arise. No funeral, no lament, only continuity. And within that continuity, stillness is the background music of the universe. If humans could learn anything from a droplet, it would be the art of leaving in peace, without fear, without regret, quietly handing back the energy one carries, knowing that even as we dissolve, life goes on a part of us, moving forward in other things. Biologically, this process is called material cycling. When an organism dies, the elements in its body, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, are released into the environment. Those elements are taken up by other organisms and used to build themselves. Thus, this planet is a vast wheel with no beginning and no end. If you've ever seen tiny bubbles rise in old water, that's a sign of decomposition. But don't fear it. That is not the smell of death. It is the smell of life at work. Beneath, millions of microbes are dismantling molecule by molecule, reusing atom by atom, rearranging everything into new order. It is the invisible hand of continuation, and you can feel it not only in nature, but within yourself. Every day, millions of your cells die and are replaced. Hair sheds, skin peels, old blood renews. Life and death happen at once, right now, inside you. Without death at the cellular level, your body could not grow, heal, or be well. Nature never gives for free, and never simply takes away. It only exchanges. In a droplet, death has no borders. When a bacterium dissolves, the water absorbs its share. When another cell is born, it takes that matter to build itself. And water, like a mother, holds it all. No judgment, no sides, everything allowed to blend. Looking deeper, We might say water is the memory of life, for within every molecule of water are traces of countless lives gone by. When you touch a bead of dew, you touch the story of millions who lived, dissolved, and were reborn. That dew may have been someone's tear, the forest's breath, the sea's blood. It has passed through every life and remains whole, and so the droplet teaches humility. Though it has traveled billions of cycles, it neither boasts nor demands remembrance. It simply continues its task, to nourish. If we know how to listen, we'll hear a very quiet voice within it. Nothing is lost. I am still here, only in another form. Humans often fear death as an ending. Nature knows that endings are beginnings of another form. A seed must split to sprout. Winter must thaw for spring to come. A droplet must evaporate to become rain. A cell must dissolve to nourish the next generation. In the micro world, every creature understands this. No one clings. No one resists. When the time comes, they dissolve without sadness, without fear, because they know life is still flowing through them, never stopping. Perhaps that is why in a droplet there is no concept of trash. Everything is resource, material, a piece of life's mosaic. And if you notice, that is the deep philosophy humanity seeks to reclaim today. Nothing discarded, only reborn. Nature has done so since the beginning. Picture it. In that droplet, hundreds of beings dissolve into one another, transform together, return to the water together. No longer any distinction of who is what. Only unity remains, a perfect dissolution where the boundary between life and death disappears. Seen with the heart, there is the image of eternity, not the eternity of immortality, but the eternity of recurrence. Each cycle ends only to open another. Each death is merely a rest where life changes tempo. As you breathe now, the oxygen molecule you receive may have been in a leaf an hour ago, in seawater a month ago, in the lungs of a creature gone for millennia, and you, in this moment, are continuing them. Death, in that sense, does not separate us from the world. It binds us to it. Tonight, when you lie down, perhaps you'll hear rain at the window, the drip of water. Let it remind you that everything returns. That water outside was once breath, blood, cloud, tears, and now it is gentle rain lulling you to sleep. Nature is telling you, do not fear endings. They are beginnings in another form. And as you drift into sleep, imagine yourself a droplet clear, small, but holding a universe within. Each breath you exhale blends into the air and will return in some rain to feed a seed or cool a stranger's face. You do not disappear. You only pass things on. The stillness inside a droplet is the music of that wheel. The low notes are death. The high notes are life. Together they form a song that never stops. Sleep now, for even as you sleep, life keeps moving in you. As it moves in every droplet, in every breeze, and in every breath of this planet. Quiet, yet never still. That is eternity in the shape of a drop of water. As the previous part closes, the droplet keeps drifting in the cycle. Birth and death interlace, rebirth follows. Everything seems to run in perfect order, but nature, however subtle, is never truly safe. Some days, the droplet is lightly touched by something unintended, a grain of chemical dust, a minor temperature shift, a shade covering the sun for a second, and the entire world inside begins to tremble. If you looked into the droplet through a microscope at that moment, you would see something strange. No explosion, No obvious sign of catastrophe, only motions suddenly slowing. Some algae stop photosynthesizing. Some bacteria go still, their cell walls wrinkling like someone holding their breath. A thin biofilm peels away and melts into the water. A ribbon of oxygen vanishes from the surface in seconds. Life does not die at once. It stops breathing. The droplet then is like a tiny heart missing a beat. Everything inside stands still, as if time has paused. That world, once always in motion, always rhythmic, now sinks into a cold quiet. But then, within that silence, something small begins. An anaerobic bacterium from the deepest dark layer stirs. It needs no oxygen, fears no heat. It knows only one thing: do not stop. It starts to break down what remains, releasing gas, setting the water in faint motion. Life, somehow, still finds a way. That is nature's unbreakable rule. Every chaos holds the seed of recovery. If we magnified the droplet 1,000-fold, we would see a scene like those humans have witnessed after disasters. A small world ravaged, yet someone stays, begins to sweep, rebuild, reconnect the breath. As after a forest fire, when tiny seeds left in the soil quietly germinate. As after a storm, when corals regrow from broken branches. The droplet, small as it is, carries the same spirit of recovery. When one cell dies, another learns to endure longer. When temperature rises, weaker bacteria vanish, but a few hardy ones adapt, tweaking enzymes to cope better. When the environment is poisoned, some species learn to eat the toxin to live. No disaster is meaningless. Nature turns it into a lesson. If there is a secret language life uses to speak to itself, the first line in its book must be, learn how to return. That micro-world in the tiny droplet truly reflects us. Humans experience similar disturbances. Sometimes a small event makes us feel we've collapsed. A loss, a hurt, a disappointment can make the soul stop breathing. But like the droplet, we carry a recovery instinct. For life does not know despair, it only knows to find a way forward. When we let time pass, like water resting quietly in a jar, the toxins of emotion slowly settle. Above, the clear layer begins to brighten again. Steady breathing, and then one day, we realize we're smiling again, talking again, loving again. That's when the revival bacteria inside our hearts begin to work. In nature, this capacity to recover is called resilience, biological elasticity. But if we speak in the language of night, it is the strength of stillness. For only when everything stops do we learn what within us truly lives. There is an interesting experiment biologists once did. They dripped into a droplet of water a small amount of chemical, so little it seemed harmless. In the first few minutes, nothing happened. But after just 10 minutes, the structure of the microbial community had changed completely. Some species vanished, others took their place. Gentle species turned aggressive, grazers became predators. The ecosystem was overturned, and then, after a few hours, once the chemical had diluted, life began to rebalance. Not returning as it was, but becoming a new version. Different, yet still harmonious. Nature never tries to go back to the past. It always moves forward, carrying wounds and carrying lessons. That is why this planet has survived billions of years of turmoil. Volcanoes, thawing ice, meteorites, wars, plagues. Life is not perfect. It is simply so persistent as to be immortal. And that tiny droplet, seemingly so fragile a single breath could shatter it, is the most beautiful proof of that endurance. When you look at a droplet of water, You are seeing the balance between chaos and order. It seems quiet, yet with only the smallest change, everything inside will spin to adapt. One bacterium dies, another species lives. A ribbon of oxygen disappears, a ribbon of CO2 rises. One chain of reactions shuts off, another switches on. In that way, life never turns off completely. It only changes tempo, like the human body. When the heart weakens, the lungs assist. When the eyes tire, the ears grow sharper. When we collapse, the soul finds a way to lift itself with sleep, with music, with beautiful memories. Life in every form shares the same language. Revival. I remember once seeing a scene through the microscope that I'll never forget. A droplet from a small pond was evaporating fast under harsh sunlight. The water receded. Hundreds of cells were squeezed together. Flagellates flicked harder. Ciliates curled up as if trying to hide inside themselves. Then, a moment later, everything went still, as if death had arrived. But it took only another drop to fall, a bead of dew, a breath of moisture, a breeze carrying damp, for that whole world to come back to life. Cells that had contracted suddenly extended, flagellates spun, bacteria released gas again, just a single drop. And yet, as if life had been granted once more, then I realized something simple. All life needs is a small chance to return. No miracle, no deity, just one drop, enough to restart the pulse. If you are hearing this in the dark, imagine yourself as that droplet. Inside you may be tired, maybe breaking, maybe dried out by the day's worries, but one small thing, a deep breath, a gentle thought, a beautiful memory, is enough to rouse the flow within you. For like the droplet, you don't need to be perfect to exist. You only need to continue. Nature does not require you to be unbroken. A dust-laden droplet after rain grows clear again. A river after a storm returns to a level surface. And you, after every hurt, can return to yourself, if you let time and stillness do their work. In biology, that process of recovery is called homeostasis, a state of dynamic balance, not standing still, but constantly adjusting to stay upright. A droplet is never motionless. It oscillates, adjusts, transforms, yet always tends toward the center, always seeks to maintain the life rhythm. So does the human body. So does our soul. And perhaps that is the true definition of quiet. Not the absence of sound, but the ability to rise after disorder. As night deepens and your eyelids grow heavy, remember that out there, billions of droplets are doing the same. Shaken by wind, by dust, by heat, and then quiet again. No droplet holds its shape forever, yet each finds a way to return to its original form. The little worlds inside them may collapse hundreds of times a day, but each time they rise again, a bit sturdier, a bit wiser. And tomorrow morning, when you open your eyes, the first light touching your skin will also have passed through countless tiny droplets glittering outside. Each droplet carries a memory of collapses and risings. Each one is proof that no chaos is permanent. So if today you feel worn, let tonight be your droplet. Let stillness rinse, soothe, and soften, and tomorrow you will be clear again, bright again, alive again, like a droplet, like this planet, like every living thing that has ever fallen and stood again in silence, quiet but not motionless. That is how life persists, and how you will continue. As the previous part ends, we see the droplet through countless falls and recoveries. That small world keeps finding its balance, like a human heart after each upheaval, like a planet after every storm. And in that quiet moment, as the droplet floats in the morning sun, we realize its rhythm is not only its own. There is a strange truth. Every motion in the universe, whether as large as a galaxy or as small as a cell, obeys the same principle: the search for order within chaos. From stardust grains gathering into planets to a single cell forming from molecules in water, everything is seeking a stable shape in which to exist. A droplet is a replica of the universe, a scaled-down, hushed version that still contains the laws of the vast beyond. In the droplet, bits of matter circle, collide, separate, and recombine. In the universe, stars, galaxies, and nebulae also revolve, collide, explode, and give birth to new worlds. Both run on the same score: order, chaos, then rebirth. If you could look deep into a droplet, you'd see tiny eddies like the spiral arms of galaxies. A small whirl in a glass might be a miniature portrait of the Milky Way, and through a telescope at the universe, you'd see structures like a cellular web, galaxies linked by filaments of gas and dust. Not unlike a droplet's molecular architecture, from the subatomic to the planetary, everything breathes to a single beat. The stillness we see in a droplet is, in truth, the stillness of space. Out in the universe, there is no sound, no wind, no surf, no heartbeat, only motion and silence. So too the droplet. Within it, millions of chemical reactions unfurl without making a single sound. Everything happens in perfect quiet, and that very quiet is nature's language. The universe speaks in silence. So does the droplet. It needs no words to say, "I live." It only moves lightly, drifts, dissolves, and persists, silent yet alive. If you lie down now and take a deep breath, you'll feel the same. In your chest, lungs swell and settle. Billions of cells exchange gases. Blood runs through veins. None of it makes a sound. Your body is a quiet universe. You carry the droplet's breath, the planet's spin, the slow rhythm of distant stars. A biologist once said, "What we see under the microscope is not only life, it is the universe's memory continuing." Indeed, the atoms that make microbes were once stardust. The carbon in algal cells, the oxygen in the droplet, the iron in human blood, all were born from the explosions of ancient stars. You are hearing this with ears whose atoms flew among stars billions of years ago. You are star transfigured. A droplet is star transfigured, and with every breath, the universe keeps talking to itself. When you gaze at stars, you are looking toward where you came from. When you look at a droplet, you are looking at a replica of yourself. Life is not separate from the universe. It is how the universe knows it exists. If a droplet could speak, perhaps it would tell you a tale, that once it was part of a cloud skimming earth, that it dissolved in the sea, evaporated, fell again as rain, and in each cycle it witnessed millions of beings born, dying, returning. It watched the sun rise, then set, then rise again. It saw rivers change course, mountains melt, and rise anew, and it realized nothing truly ends. Only rhythms repeat in new forms. So too the universe. Stars explode to make new stars. Galaxies collide, then merge into one. Small particles lose energy, then draw in other energy, like a droplet in Earth's water cycle. The universe has its own cycle, an endless rebirth. Look closely and you'll see. The droplet stillness is a small copy of cosmic stillness. Not noisy, not absolute, merely tiny oscillations in perfect balance. Amid all motion, there is always a point of rest, a center of order. When you look at the night sky, you see stars twinkling, but the light that reaches your eyes has traveled for millions of years. You are seeing the universe's past, just as when you look into a droplet, you see the past of life. Within it lie laws that have existed since time's first dawn. The law of motion, the law of balance, the law of revival. Each microbe is a model of evolution, and each mote of stardust a model of creation. All operate together, though at different scales. A single droplet can contain the universe's lesson. That leads us to understand life is not a random miracle, but the inevitable result of order. When there is energy, space, and opportunity, life must appear. Just as light must shine, water must flow, and a seed must sprout when it meets soil. A droplet is the smallest place where that law shows itself most clearly, and the wonder is, however many times we divide it, slice it into even smaller drops, each part still carries the potential to begin the whole of life anew. So too, the universe. Although we see only a tiny portion, each part contains the whole. Perhaps that is why the ancients believed water is the universe's soul. In many cultures, water is not merely substance, but the symbol of beginning, of wisdom, of purification. In scripture, life begins with water. In Eastern philosophy, water is the most supple element, soft yet strong, humble yet invincible. And in modern science, water remains the precondition in the search for life beyond Earth. Where there is water, there is a chance for life. And if there is life, the universe is still telling its story. Picture this. As you lie in the dark, breathing slowly, your heartbeat syncs with Earth's rotation. Earth revolves around the sun day. The sun circles the Milky Way's center, and the Milky Way drifts in the ocean of the cosmos. You, the droplet in the glass on your table, and that far-off star, all are moving to the same rhythm. Not fast, not slow, not out of phase. A quiet music that encompasses everything. You may not hear it, but you are inside the universe's symphony. The droplet is a small, low note. Earth is a chord, and you are part of the melody. Tonight, as you listen, perhaps the world outside is calm, a soft wind in the leaves, a bead of dew forming on a blade of grass, and somewhere in the sky, a star sending out light you'll only see thousands of years from now. All of it is happening in this same moment. In the universe, there is no before or after, only an eternal present. And in the droplet, there is no beginning or end, only a perpetual flow. And within you, the one listening there, is the same rhythm. The stillness you feel now is not only of the room, but of billions of stars, thousands of droplets, millions of cells beating together. It is cosmic stillness, the thing that envelops, connects, and nourishes everything. As you drift towards sleep, remember this. Each breath you draw is a gift from ocean microbes, from plants on land, from an atmosphere kept moist by water. Every atom in your body once belonged to a distant star. Every heartbeat you hear is the echo of the first life in the primordial droplet. You are not separate from nature. You are nature telling its own story. A story that began with a small droplet and continues still in every breath of the universe. Let stillness wrap around you. Let the mind slow and hear the world breathing with you. Because in the end, the stillness of a droplet and the stillness of the universe are no different. They differ only in the scale of the miracle. As the previous part closes, we remained steeped in the sense of eternity, where droplet and universe share a single breath, a single law, a single mantling quiet. And amid that vastness, a very human thought appears. We who lift our heads to the night sky, intent on seeking life out there, may have forgotten that the greatest life is right under our feet. If you bend down and look at a bead of water on a leaf, you are looking at a miracle. No microscope, no lab required, only imagination, and you can already see millions of tiny beings moving within it. They do not know of you, do not care for the outside world, and yet, because of them, this whole planet is breathing. Those little beings, bacteria, flagellates, algae, rotifers, are Earth's heartbeat. Without them, there would be no recycling cycles, no oxygen, no green plants, no humans. They do not invent, do not build, do not converse, but they sustain everything by doing exactly what they were born to do. In humanity's noisy world, where everyone wants to be bigger, taller, stronger, those beings teach us the lesson of smallness, that to uphold life, one need not be large. One need only keep to one's role patiently, steadily, humbly. In the lab, scientists have said, when you see a bacterial cell dividing, you are witnessing the purest moment of creation in the universe. No frills, no blinding light, no Big Bang roar, just a cell splitting, making life. A small act containing the entire philosophy of existence. To give, in order to multiply, microbes keep nothing for themselves. Dying, they give their bodies. Living, they pass on energy. They know nothing of ownership, only service to a larger flow. And perhaps that is what we, amid billions of noises, races, and desires, have forgotten. There is a curious paradox. We spend billions seeking signs of extraterrestrial life, while each droplet on Earth is already packed with life we do not yet understand. We launch spacecraft to Mars, beam signals into space, hope to meet others, and seldom bend to look into a single droplet under a microscope, where others live right beside us. And who knows if life exists beyond Earth? It may be just as small, not colossal beings, but single cells swimming in Mars's reddish seas, or hiding in Europa's ice, Jupiter's moon. If one day humanity truly finds life elsewhere, perhaps we will also realize it all begins the same, with a droplet. When you look at a droplet under a microscope, you are seeing a complete society. There are predators, defenders, photosynthesizers who feed the system. There is symbiosis, competition, order, and chaos. Everything works without law codes, without kings, without government. Each organism simply does its part, and the whole system runs itself. Humans were once like that when we lived close to nature, when we listened to soil, water, plants, and wind. But over time, we forgot that rhythm. We came to think control is power, yet true power is integration. A droplet does not cling to a single shape, but can take the shape of anything that holds it. It is soft, yet so steady it can split mountains of rock. It need not win to persist, it only needs to flow. The beings in a droplet do not know humans, yet they grasp the universe's rules better than we do. They know everything has limits. When food runs out, they sleep. When the environment turns toxic, they change form. When conditions favor, they live again. No complaints, no resistance, no resentment. They simply adapt. In the philosophy of biology, this is called primordial intelligence. That which needs no language, and yet knows how to keep life going. Watch a flagellate swim. and you'll see it constantly change direction, never going straight, never ramming the wall, but slipping past, as if it knows the right road is the winding one. And perhaps our lives are the same. We need not go straight to arrive. We need only know how to turn, to sidestep, to stop. The more we understand microbes, the smaller we feel. Small not from weakness, but from recognizing we are only a part of a larger rhythm. No one is higher than another. There is no hierarchy among lives. A human and a bacterium both are made from the same atoms, the same laws, the same beginning. When you drink water, you take in billions of living cells that have passed through countless lifetimes. When you exhale, the vapor from your lungs becomes cloud, then rain, then returns to the ocean where those beings again live on the very breath you just released. By that measure, the universe has no borders. If you pay attention, you'll notice the greatest lesson from a drop of water is humility, because only with humility can life endure. The large must lean on the small. Forests live thanks to mosses and microorganisms in the soil. The ocean lives thanks to tiny plankton. The human body lives thanks to billions of symbiotic bacteria in the gut. There is no I that exists alone, no greatness that's separate from small things. When you bow to look at a drop of water, you aren't just looking at life. You're looking at the universe's humility, a humility that doesn't speak, doesn't lecture, only exists to remind us. You don't need to be big to make change. You only need to exist in the right place, in the right rhythm, at the right time. Humans are still searching for extraterrestrial life, a beautiful yearning. But perhaps what we need more is not to find another life, but to learn how to live with the life that is here. Because if we cannot protect a single drop of water, how could we protect another planet? If we cannot listen to the whisper of life in a droplet, how could we understand the message of a distant universe? Perhaps the universe has never been silent toward us. We are simply too noisy to hear it. Tonight, when you rest your head on the pillow, imagine you're lying inside a gigantic droplet, clear, cool, and still. Around you, millions of tiny beings are breathing with you. They don't know who you are, but thanks to them, you can live. You inhale, they release oxygen. You exhale, they take in carbon. A perfect relationship, wordless. This world, stripped of human clamor, has long been perfect. Life needs no controller. Left in peace, it will find balance on its own. Like the droplet, like your heart, like the universe itself. Before you sleep, remember, no life is small. No existence is meaningless. Even a single droplet bears an entire planet on its back. And even you, in tonight's quiet, are helping the world carry on with a single breath. As the previous part closes, we still see the image of the small droplet quietly supporting the whole world. It is humble, unnoisy, yet each of its movements is part of Earth's heartbeat. And if we sit very still, unhurried, thoughtless, simply listening, we will realize this planet is still breathing. Have you ever tried to listen to Earth breathing? Not with your ears, but with your heart. Not to hear wind or waves, but the rhythm of life unfolding around you, slow, steady, patient. In a droplet, every organism contributes a tiny beat to that grand symphony. A bacterium quivers, creating a small oscillation. An alga releases oxygen, adding a light beat. A flagellate flicks its tail, sending ripples across the tiny space. Blown up large, we'd see that world as a beating heart, even, rounded, quiet, but full of vitality. Scientists have recorded Earth's natural resonant oscillation, calling it the Schumann breath. It is the electromagnetic vibration between the ground and the ionosphere, a deep heart sound at about 7.83 hertzes. The strange thing is, that is close to the brain's oscillation when humans are in deep relaxation just before drifting to sleep. In other words, when you relax, your brain is vibrating with the planet's rhythm. When you inhale, exhale slowly, you are in tune with Earth's heartbeat. And if we picture that tiny droplet as a miniature heart of the planet, then every reaction, every oscillation, every stream of energy within it is a little heartbeat, linking you to the entire universe. Perhaps that is why we feel so at peace when we hear rain. For in each falling drop, there is the planet's heartbeat tapping softly on the roof, and within each patter is your own breath reflected back. When you lie still in a dark room and hear the even rain, you are hearing Earth speak to you. Those drops once rose from the sea, passed through forests, fell into rivers, carrying the life rhythm of millions of beings, then returned to tap out the tempo for your sleep. There is no separation here. You, I, the droplet, trees, birds, clouds, all breathe to the same tempo, a piece of music whose invisible conductor is Earth. If you listen a little longer, you'll find not only droplets, everything has its own rhythm. A human heart beats about 70 times a minute. Trees open stomata to exchange vapor in cycles of light. Marine algae produce oxygen in the day-night rhythm. Even coral glowing, fish swimming, waves breaking all follow repeating beats. A life tempo nature has practiced for billions of years. We don't stand outside that music. We are one note, a small beat, sometimes slow, sometimes off, but still belonging to the whole song. I once read a line from the biologist Rachel Carson: "If one can sense the wonder of a single drop of water, one will never feel lonely." Because in that droplet, there is an entire world beating with you. When you are sad and tears fall, that too is a droplet from the same source, returning to Mother Earth, carrying your sadness to blend with the ocean. And when rain comes, water brings you coolness back, as if Earth were saying, "I have heard your sorrow, and I return it as gentleness." This whole planet is, in truth, listening to you through each drop of water. Look closely, and you'll see life runs on rhythm, not on noise. A heart doesn't have to shout to exist. A tree doesn't have to yell to grow. Water doesn't have to scream to reach the sea. They simply keep their own time low, steady, unhurried. Some people run their whole lives only to realize when they stop that they've missed the greatest music, the music of life. The droplet teaches us this. Life isn't ahead, not at some finish line, but unfolding right now, in each breath we take. When we say Earth has a breath, that isn't a metaphor. This planet truly breathes. Temperature, air pressure, wind, oceans, all oscillate in cycles. Even the soil beneath your feet expands and contracts each day with the sun's warmth. It is like a colossal living being, and we, along with all other organisms, are cells within that body. If Earth is a body, then water is the blood. Microbes are the cells, forests are the lungs, and we humans are perhaps the cells that know to ask where we belong in the whole. And the droplet, small as it is, still keeps the planet's pulse. Without it, no rhythm continues. In the night, as you lie in the dark, try a small thing. Place your hand on your chest, feel your heartbeat, then imagine that beat radiating outward, blending with the throb of Earth beneath the floor, then traveling through the air to join the pulse of distant oceans. All the heartbeats in this world of people, of beasts, of algae, of the sea, are linked into a single rhythm. When you sleep, the planet beats with you. It does not leave you behind, does not forget you. It simply keeps life going, gently. Scientists have measured the oscillating rhythms of melting ice, tides, ocean currents. Each has its own tempo, like auxiliary heart sounds in Earth's giant body, and when they merge, we hear a heartbeat that is low, slow, yet boundless. That heartbeat may be the sound of waves on the night shore, or rain on tile, or simply your breath, as you lie still, needing to do nothing, and realize you are living in the planet's very rhythm. So whenever you feel lost, remember, you have never truly been alone. Even when you sit by yourself in a dark room, beneath the soil, billions of microorganisms are alive, still exchanging energy, still keeping breath for you. You are supported by an invisible web, a symphony of which you are a part. You are not outside nature, you are nature temporarily in human form. You are not outside the rhythm, you are a note in that music. As I write these lines, I think about the way a droplet falls. It doesn't know where it will go into soil, into a river, or evaporate into the sky. But in that moment of falling, it accepts life's rhythm. It doesn't resist, doesn't ask why, only goes with the flow. And perhaps that is the most beautiful thing a droplet teaches us, that sometimes, to live, we don't need to understand everything. We just need to breathe with it, move with it, and quietly trust we belong to something greater than ourselves. Tonight, if you hear rain, let each drop fall into the cadence of your breath. If there is no rain, imagine water threading through a brook, the far-off ocean, and let your mind go with it. No thinking, no effort, just listen, and you'll realize this planet is breathing with you. Each of your breaths is part of that shared heartbeat, and as you let yourself slip into sleep, you become a droplet in the ocean of life, quiet, even, no beginning, no end, only Earth's heartbeat beating within you, a shaft of light passing through a droplet, something simple, yet if we pause to look closely, one of the world's loveliest miracles. With just a small angle of incidence, a transparent droplet suddenly becomes a complete rainbow, splitting white light into thousands of hues: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, and billions of intermediate shades our eyes cannot tell apart. A droplet that seems ordinary contains the entire spectrum of the universe's light, and that makes us realize stillness is never empty. It is merely the sum of countless motions so subtle we don't perceive them. Like light, which seems a single white color but is in fact the gathering of all colors, so too the quiet droplet is not merely still. It is a symphony of millions of life shades vibrating at their own frequencies. If you magnify a droplet, you'll see it as a tiny theater. Green algae absorb red light for photosynthesis. Red algae use blue light to endure in deeper zones. Some microorganisms can glow faintly in the dark bioluminescence proteins in their bodies, emitting a blue light like night stars under the microscope. When light touches that world, each organism answers differently. No two are the same. Each chemical reaction, each color, each mode of motion is an individual reply to the universe's question, how do you exist? The answer isn't in words, but in light and color. An alga quietly absorbs, a bacterium turns, a ciliate glints like crystal dust, all reflecting, oscillating, lighting up together within a small transparent sphere. Look long enough and you'll understand that diversity is the deepest form of stillness. Like people, each of us is a different color. Some are green calm, deep, soft as the sea. Some are red blazing, intense, unable to hide feeling. Some are yellow, warm and gentle, like late sunlight. Some are violet, mild, dreamy, full of thought. And amid all of them, when they live together, the world becomes peaceful, not because they are alike, but because they reflect one another. So it is with the droplet. No organism takes command, no one gives orders, and precisely for that reason, it becomes a perfect natural symphony, where every shade, every difference, coexists in a tiny space by listening to each other. Light and water are life's oldest elements. Before forests, before mountains, before humans they met. Billions of years ago, when Earth was a primordial ocean, the first light touched the water, creating energy for the first life to form. Light is the father, water the mother, and life is their child. When a ray of light passes through a droplet today, it carries a memory of origins. And when you see a rainbow, it's not just physics, but a reminder that every life, however small, bears the universe's ancient light. In stillness, light seems to go slower. In water, it changes course, bends, dissolves into colors. That is physics, but also a philosophy of living. Sometimes only when we slow down does light appear. When we stop rushing, stop hunting, stop chasing, the true colors of life reveal themselves soft, gentle, but deep. Stillness does not kill the light. It merely bends it into beauties we have never seen. Have you ever watched a rainbow after rain and felt your heart grow quiet? Not because of the colors, but because it reminds you of something very old, as if Earth had just sighed after a good cry. Water and light, two seemingly inanimate things, can make the human heart tremble. That is nature's art, moving us with absolute simplicity. When light passes through a droplet, all colors are born at once, none dominating. Red doesn't try to outshine blue. Violet doesn't try to be deeper than green. They simply are themselves, blending into a perfect whole. So too in the microscopic world, each small organism exists not to rise above, but to contribute to balance. And when we learn that, we begin to understand what true peace is. If you see a beam of light entering water, you'll witness dispersion. But in nature's philosophy, dispersion is more than a physical phenomenon. It's a metaphor for life. The most beautiful things arise from splitting. White light must break for a rainbow to appear. The rain must pass for clarity to return. A person must endure loneliness to feel the meaning of connection. To break is not to lose. To break is to let light through. The droplet understands this. It does not fear dissolving, because in dissolving it can mirror the sky. It does not fear evaporating, because vapor will return as rain. It does not fear being pierced by light, because then it becomes a rainbow. In the droplet's world, stillness is not avoidance, but the highest form of acceptance. I want you to imagine this. Early morning, you sit by a window. A bead of dew clings to a leaf, glittering in the sun. Inside that bead you see a tiny rainbow, faint but true. Within it there is an entire world, water, light, life, and you coexisting. In that moment you are not just looking, you're on the same frequency as nature. The droplet doesn't know you're gazing at it. Light doesn't know it's being admired. Yet the meeting of you, light droplet, creates a moment so perfect it needs no words. That is the symphony of life. in stillness. In the microscopic world, there is no black. Even in the darkest place, there is light's oscillation too small for us to see. That means there is no absolute darkness, only light that hasn't had time to arrive. Likewise in life, no sorrow is forever, only hope that hasn't yet returned. And sometimes, a single ray slipping through changes everything. The droplet reminds us, change the angle, and the world is different. Things haven't changed, only our seeing has. If you're hearing me at midnight, perhaps you're surrounded by darkness, but imagine, right now, outside, millions of dewdrops are glimmering in moonlight. They do not need the sun. They still reflect that faint light into their own colors, quiet yet radiant. That is the beauty of light in the night. And you are the same. Even in your darkest pores, there is light within you, small but steady. You don't need to blaze to exist. You need only reflect a little light you have. True stillness is never monochrome. It holds everything. The colors of growth, of change, of loss, of rebirth, like a droplet under light. Every ripple, every motion, every reflection is its own band of life. And when we look with quiet eyes, we see all those colors blending into one shared light, the light of understanding, acceptance, and peace. So if you close your eyes tonight, picture a droplet suspended in air, light passing through it, splitting into countless hues. Each hue is a part of you, a part that has been hurt, a part that has loved, a part that has believed, a part that has grown tired, and a part still living bright, even in silence. The droplet doesn't choose which color is most beautiful. It simply lets light pass. So do you. You don't need to choose the most perfect version of yourself. Just let light move through you and let it scatter into the many colors of your own life. Sleep in that light. Not glaring, not cold, not judgmental, only the gentle light of a new morning waiting beyond your window. For when you wake, the sun will again shine through dewdrops, and the world, whether small, broad, sad or glad, will glow in stillness. That tiny droplet will mirror the sky again, and you, the one listening, will mirror life once more. Because in the end, light does not only pass through water, it passes through you. Night has fallen, you lie still, hearing your heartbeat slow. All the day's sounds have dissolved, only breath, wind, and if you are keen, the soft sound of a drop touching the earth somewhere outside. You know, that small sound, that seemingly ordinary plop, is the planet's heartbeat, because water never rests. It evaporates, falls, soaks in, flows away, rises, an endless cycle, like Earth's inhaling and exhaling. And if Earth has a soul, surely it takes the shape of a droplet. That droplet has followed us the whole way, from when the world was only a primordial ocean, where first life stirred in the dark, from when humans could not speak or dream but knew thirst and reached out for water, to now, as we sit in the quiet night and tell its story. Science says more than 60% of the human body is water, meaning, in essence, we are not so different from a droplet. We carry within us the sea's memory, the river's breath, and the stillness of ancient lakes where life first sang its wordless song. When we grieve, water runs from our eyes. When we rejoice, water remains in blood, in heart, in every cell. We are a human-shaped droplet that knows how to think, love, and dream. In a droplet, millions of tiny beings live. In us, trillions of cells breathe. Both are silent, both are busy, both work without cease to sustain life. And like the droplet, we reflect the world around us. When the light is lovely, we shine. When darkness settles, we grow subdued. But light and darkness are not separate. They alternate within us, shaping the human rhythm. The droplet teaches a final lesson. Stillness is not the absence of movement, but movement that has merged with itself. Like our hearts, beating lifelong without our control. Like breath, moving in and out without our thinking. When everything becomes natural, when action no longer needs efforted awareness, that is when true quiet appears. If you submerge yourself in a lake and close your eyes, you'll hear strange sounds. The heart, the blood, water brushing skin, all blending into a soft hum. That is the sound of dissolving of us into water, of humans into nature. No boundary, no observer, and observed. Only union. As when you listen to music without analyzing melody, letting yourself drift with the tempo. That is the moment you and the music become one. The droplet does that every second. It doesn't try to reflect the sky. It simply exists, and the sky appears within it. In Eastern philosophy, people say a tranquil mind is like water. Not water in a bottle, but water that can reflect the whole world without holding anything. Still, when we no longer want to possess, not wanting more understanding, not wanting more or less, just being. At night, as you hear me speak, perhaps your mind is slowing, worries melt like mist. That is the moment you return to your true nature, a droplet, quiet, clear, reflecting all without being bound by anything. If there is one thing a droplet wishes to tell us, it might be this: don't try to control life, let it flow. Water doesn't seek a path, but it always reaches where it should. It moves through rock, around trees, through human hands, through the ocean, and finally through our hearts. It doesn't know the future, doesn't fear loss, but trusts the current, the oldest faith in the universe. Watch a droplet fall onto a lake's surface. At first, only a light touch. From that, hundreds of rings spread, wider, wider, until the whole surface quivers. So too every thought, every word, every act of ours is a droplet falling into life's lake. However small, it makes ripples of influence. Stillness is not withdrawing from the world, but touching it gently, enough to make waves, not storms. People often search for peace far away, in deep forests, on high mountains, in temples. But the droplet reminds us, peace isn't in where we go, but in how we are. A glass of water can be clear in a noisy city, and a great lake can be murky in a green forest. Space does not decide peace. Our mind does. If we keep a clarity like water, we can reflect light anywhere. And when we learn to listen like water, we will no longer fear noise. For when truly quiet, every sound becomes music. There is a small thing few notice. Whenever we look at a droplet, our image is always in it, even if only as a blur. No droplet ever fails to reflect. Perhaps that is nature's metaphor for us. Everything we see outside is only a reflection of the inside. When our mind is turbid, the world around is hazy. When our mind is clear, everything shines. Like water, we cannot force ourselves to clear. We simply let the silt settle, and silt only settles when we stop stirring. Science says nothing in the universe is lost. Every water molecule, every atom, only transforms. A droplet from the primordial ocean may now be in your blood. A raindrop today may once have flowed across Egypt's ancient deserts, and the vapor you exhale will become cloud. then rain, then return again. You are not outside that cycle. You are part of it. You are not only living in the world is living through you. So when you listen to a droplet, you are listening to yourself, a smaller, lighter, simpler, but truer version. Tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine yourself a droplet in the ocean. Around you are millions of other drops, each reflecting a piece of light, each carrying its own breath, yet all blending together, no distinction, no competition. You need not try to shine more than anyone. When all merge, the entire ocean shines. The droplets journey from mist to rain, rain to river, river to sea, is also the human journey, from solitude to connection, from pain to understanding, from division to dissolution, and in the end, when we dissolve into life's ocean, we do not vanish. We become part of eternal stillness. Now everything is quiet. The droplet has fallen to earth. You are ready to drift into sleep. But before you close your eyes, remember, stillness is not far away. It is within you. Release your shoulders. Release your mind. Breathe in deeply, then breathe out softly. Your breath blends into the air. The vapor from your lungs becomes faint mist, and a small part of you returns to the world. You are not separate. You are a drop in the ocean of life. Sleep gently in that stillness, where everything melts together, where light, water, and breath are no longer different, where all drops meet again, in Earth's tender arms, and in the universe's eternal breath. Quiet, in a single droplet, and within you, you may close your eyes now, and let thoughts fade like mist. If the mind still wants to wander, let it continue the journey to the next video, where we'll go deeper into the mysteries of the soul. But if the body is tired, simply let this sound lull you to sleep.